This doctrine of common grace is very important, and I know some people are out there going, "You lost me already." No, we're going to bring you in because we really want you to understand why we are engaging and asking for people to engage the way that we are, and common grace helps that up. So, for those that are again theologically not at the doctoral level, let's lay that out for them. You're used to working with undergraduates, but let's say that we're having people that are saying, "Hey, I've been in the church my whole life. I've never
Yeah.
heard of common
Right.
grace.
Right.
What
Yeah.
is
Well, I
common
hadn't heard of
grace?"
it till I read it in
That's
several
true.
places. So, so let me just to bring people up to this. So think about this. Abraham Kuyper, a Dutch theologian who also wound up being prime minister one day, who also was a professor. So he was a very versatile figure and great organizer who wrote a lot. A lot of that writing also included his efforts to encourage Christians to be engaged in God's work. Key to that was the doctrine of common grace. What you think about common grace is answering this question: why does the world go on after Genesis 3? Or how do we think about the promise God makes to Noah after the flood? God says to Noah, I'm not going to do this again. I'm going to do what? I'm going to preserve the world. You can argue that there's a recommissioning that
Hmm.
happens in terms of, going back to that first great commission, a recommissioning that happens when God says to Noah, okay, we're starting over. Time to start building, it's time to start creating society. And so what happens then is common grace is a way of talking about God doing something he did not have to do, but he does, which is he preserves the world. And not only does he preserve the world, God, gives gifts to Christians and non-Christians. I like to distinguish between spiritual gifts, like we're talking about in 1 Corinthians 12, let's say, gifts that God gives that are oriented towards the mission of the church and outreach, let's say, versus talents, which are gifts that God gives to human beings in general. And people may have tremendous abilities, God given talent, as people will say, that those things come from God. So common grace explains why you can have a Miles Davis who's clearly a musical genius, but he was a difficult person to understate the case. Now, I'm still going to go to the mat and say Kind of Blues the greatest jazz album ever, but Miles was difficult. So, did Miles get that ability because he went in the woods somewhere, made a pentagram, set it on fire, made a deal with the devil? Is that where he got the talent from? No, he got the talent because God gave it to him. So it means that God makes possible good things, and maybe not ultimately good, but penultimately good things happening in the world. And the baseline way of thinking about it is to say is that because even though the fall happens, God makes it possible for humans to still participate in the cultural mandate. So God preserves the world. And there's this language about restraining the effects of sin. Sin does not operate unbridled in the world, is the way
Mm.
that Kuyper might put it. And this preservation and this you know beating back sin, sin leading things to absolute chaos. That action of God, that preserving action of God, and that generosity of God to the whole of creation, to all people, makes it possible to continue to do this work of trying to bring about some kinds of flourishing through the world. And political life is part of that.
Political life then helps the flourishing of society. That's what you're saying?
Yes. Yes.
I know some people are like,
Or
huh,
organizing our life in society, whatever language you want to use. Yeah.
because we are to seek the flourishing of society, are we not?
Yes. Yeah, I think we are. Yes.
Why do
I,
so many
I'll make it. I'll make it easy for everybody. Yeah. You know how we're supposed to make the flourishing of society? What is the second greatest commandment? The second greatest commandment, Jesus says, all the law and prophets hang on these two great commandments. Vertical, love God above all else. Translation, have no other gods before me. God alone is God.
Mhm.
have your allegiance correct, and then everything else that's horizontal is love your neighbor as yourself. And when Paul talks about love your neighbor as yourself, he says, love does no harm to a neighbor. Now, when you think about all the ways that can happen, that's not just interpersonal. That can also be in the kind of society that you build. Because why are you doing anything? Why are you doing what you're doing? You're building society. You're not just thinking about, okay, let's just build a road. You think about, where's that road going to go? What kind of road is it going to be? How safe is it going to be? Right? When we're doing when public policies are being made, are the policies only thinking about just protecting people, or are they thinking about trying to create opportunities for people to have, let's say in the United States, to have lives where they can have liberty, in other words, they can have freedom to go about a life of really the kind of agency, personal agency that most people haven't had in world history, to create
If
the conditions for that for everyone.
that's the hard part, though, is what do you do when those things that we want to see the flourishing of society and we want to see people to be able to perform it, but of course,
Yeah.
what happens when what they desire, we would say as Christians, would be against the flourishing of society if they were in pursuit of it, even though their heart desires it.
Well, I think that that's part of how we are guided by what God reveals to us, and we try at least to um, have a frame of what a good life looks like, or a good life for society looks like. A good life for society is includes a society where it's not like the movie The Purge. Okay, 24 hours you can kill whoever you want
Yeah.
without penalty. No, no, there's no purge in this society, right? No, we have laws so that if you're one of those people, you suffer the consequences.